The movie opens with a woman named Andy, lying dead alongside her 4 squad members, riddled with bullets inside a warehouse. But to understand how they got here, we rewind a few days earlier. We see Andy walking through the busy streets of Morocco when our old friend Booker shows up on a motorcycle. They haven't seen each other in years, so Booker is excited. He tells her he's been in contact with a man named Copley, a former CIA operative who's been pushing him to take on a mission, rescuing a group of kidnapped hostages in South Sudan. Andy refuses at first. She explains that they stopped doing freelance missions because they're too risky and exposure could ruin them. But Booker insists she at least think about it and lets her know that Joe and Nikki are already waiting at the hotel. Together, they head there. When Andy enters the room, Joe and Nikki greet her warmly. It's been years since the 4 of them were together. Over drinks and conversation, we learn that Andy is the leader of their small 4-person squad. But we also find out something darker. Andy gave up on helping people long ago. She no longer believes in making a difference or that the world can truly change. Still, Joe and Nikki try to convince her to take Copley's mission. After all, innocent hostages are at stake. Andy finally agrees to meet Copley in person before making a decision.
The next day, Andy and Booker meet Copley at a small cafe in the market. Copley explains that he left the CIA, but still has critical intel. 17 schoolgirls are being held hostage in South Sudan, and time is running out. Andy reluctantly agrees. When he asks about money, she coldly tells him they'll send an invoice after the mission is done. Soon after, the squad flies to South Sudan in a helicopter. At night, they infiltrate the compound where the hostages are supposedly held. They silently take down guards, blow open the door, and storm into the warehouse. But suddenly, the lights snap on. A hail of bullets rains down on them, tearing them apart. The entire squad is killed on the spot. The gunmen step out, checking their bodies, certain they're dead. But moments later, Andy twitches. Her wounds close. She rises. And one by one, the others come back to life, too. The gunmen freeze in shock. The squad they just killed is now standing, alive. A brutal fight erupts. The 4 Immortals slaughter every last guard. Only then do they realize there were never any hostages. This was a setup. Copley lured them into a trap to confirm the truth, that they're immortal. Andy notices a surveillance camera in the corner. Their secret has been exposed, recorded for proof. Furious, she orders the team to bury their weapons in the sand. She tells them the world isn't getting better, and there's no point trying to save it anymore. With heavy hearts, they leave for their base in France.
Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, we meet a young American soldier named Nile. She and her squad are searching homes for insurgents. Nile tries to connect with local women, assuring them she respects them, but they're after a dangerous target. One woman silently gestures toward a house. The squad storms it. Nile shoots the suspect, but when she tries to stop his bleeding, he suddenly pulls a knife and slashes her throat, killing her instantly.
We cut back to the Immortals on a train. While asleep, they all share the same dream. Nile waking up in a military hospital after being pronounced dead. Just like them, she came back to life. They realize a new Immortal has emerged. Andy is stunned. No one new has appeared since Joe over 200 years ago. She tells them they must find Nile fast before someone else does. Back in the Afghan base, Nile's fellow soldiers are in shock. They saw her die. The doctors say her wound healed unnaturally fast. Nile herself can't explain it. Whispers spread, and her comrades look at her with fear. In London, we shift to Merrick, a powerful pharmaceutical CEO. During an investor meeting, he brags about his research to achieve human immortality. Copley approaches him later and shows him the surveillance footage of Andy's squad regenerating. Merrick isn't convinced. It's just a video. He demands living proof. Back to Afghanistan. Nile's squad leader tells her she's being transferred to Germany for medical tests. Confused, she returns to her quarters, noticing how everyone avoids her. Fear is everywhere. But before she can leave, Andy suddenly ambushes her. She knocks out Nile's comrades, disarms her, and even shoots Nile in the chest, proving she'll resurrect. When Nile wakes up, terrified, Andy explains the truth. Nile is one of them now, an immortal. At first, Niall refuses to believe it. In panic, she even stabs Andy with a knife, but Andy heals instantly. Coldly, Andy tells her she has no choice. She must come with her if she wants answers. Dragged into an armored truck, Niall tries to escape, kicking open the back door and throwing herself onto the road. Andy calmly follows, shoots her again, and waits. Moments later, Niall gasps back to life, horrified at her own resurrection.
Andy helps her up, explaining that she's the leader of the Immortal squad. Niall is one of them now, whether she likes it or not. If she wants to survive, she'll need the squad. Andy brings her aboard a private jet. As they take off, Niall bombards her with questions. Why them? Why can't they die? Andy admits she stopped asking centuries ago. She warns Niall, from this moment on, your life will never be the same. You'll never grow old, you'll never die. And the sooner you accept it, the easier it will be.
Niall sits in stunned silence as the plane cuts through the night sky. After some time, Andy wakes up to find that Niall has tied her hands and is holding a gun, threatening the pilot to land the plane. Andy, calm and composed, orders the pilot not to listen to her. She mutters something in Russian, then suddenly points her gun at him and fires. Niall is shocked. If the pilot is dead, the plane will crash. Andy tells her the only way to save themselves is to untie her so she can take control. Nervous but desperate, Niall frees Andy. And then Andy reveals the truth. What she told the pilot in Russian was to play dead. The pilot suddenly sits up, unharmed, and takes back the controls. Furious, Niall tries to attack Andy. But Andy is stronger, more experienced. She breaks Niall's bones every time she lunges at her, until Niall is left in agony. Andy leans close and tells her, "You'll heal. You'll recover. That's who you are now." And right before Niall's eyes, her broken bones begin to mend. The pain fades. She finally realizes Andy was telling the truth. She's immortal. Andy explains that if the army had kept her, they would have locked her away and experimented on her. Extending a hand, Andy helps Niall to her feet. Niall understands now. She has no choice but to go with her.
The two arrive in France, where Andy introduces Niall to the squad. They eat together, and Niall cautiously asks whether they fight for good or for evil. The men laugh softly, telling her it depends on the century. In some eras, they fought for justice. In others, they weren't even sure which side was right. They tell Niall that the last immortal to join them was Joe, over 200 years ago, when he fought in Napoleon's army. Since then, no new immortals had appeared, until her. They share stories of their roles in the Crusades and countless historic battles.
Curious, Niall asks Andy how old she really is. Andy shrugs. She stopped counting long ago. Then they reveal something chilling. One of their immortal brothers had once lost his ability to heal. After a battle, his wounds never closed, and he died. No one knew why. It's a reminder that none of them are truly safe forever. That night, Niall wakes from a nightmare, shaken. She tells the group she dreamed of a woman trapped inside an iron coffin beneath the sea, drowning, reviving, drowning again, endlessly screaming but never escaping.
The squad grows quiet. They explain that the woman is Quinn, one of them. Centuries ago, she and Andy were the first immortals to find each other, fighting side by side in thousands of battles. But in England, they were captured and accused of witchcraft. No rope, no fire could kill them, which only convinced their captors more. In the end, they sealed Quinn in an iron coffin and sank her into the ocean. Forever. Andy watched helplessly as they dragged her away, screaming. For over 500 years, Andy searched the seas, desperate to find her, but never did. And though they all dream of Quinn from time to time, they can never locate her. That's why they live in constant fear of being captured, of sharing her fate.
Later that night, Andy steps outside with Niall. She reassures her, all the fear and confusion she's feeling, Andy has lived it 1,000 times. This fate is not theirs to choose, but Niall must accept it. Her old life is gone. Now her only family is them. As they talk, armed men begin sneaking into the compound. Andy and Niall notice shadows moving.
Alarmed, they rush back inside, only to find Booker lying motionless on the floor, bleeding from a gunshot wound. Andy kneels beside him, anxiously waiting until he finally heals and comes back with a groan of pain. She demands to know what happened. Booker explains that armed men stormed in, shooting them down. Joe and Nikki are gone, captured.
Andy orders them to move out. She clears a path through the armed man with brutal precision, while Niall helps Booker. Together, they escape in a stolen car. Meanwhile, Joe and Nikki are dragged into a plane where Copley is waiting. Back with Andy, she takes Booker and Niall to a secret safe house hidden in an abandoned mine. She stresses to Booker that they must find Copley and rescue Joe and Nikki.
At the same time, Copley delivers Joe and Nikki to Merrick, the ruthless pharmaceutical tycoon. Merrick reveals his plan. He will use their bodies to unlock the secret of eternal life, creating a product that will be humanity's greatest achievement. To prove they can't die, he stabs Joe in the neck. When the wound seals shut, Merrick's eyes light up with triumph. His assistant is ecstatic. This discovery could win them a Nobel Prize, even change history. Merrick coldly orders his guards to sedate them and take them to the lab.
Elsewhere, Andy walks into a small supermarket to buy medical supplies for her wound. A young clerk notices her injury and offers to help. She takes Andy into the back room and carefully bandages the wound. But Andy notices something horrifying. Her body isn't healing anymore. For the first time in centuries, Andy realizes she's losing her gift. She's becoming mortal, vulnerable. The girl kindly tells Andy she looks lonely, like she needs help. Andy forces a smile, thanks her, and leaves. Back at the lab, Merrick has Joe and Nikki strapped down, drawing blood and samples as they writhe in pain. He tells Copley nothing will stop him from reaching his goal. Not morality, not mercy. He will complete his research, no matter the cost. That night, Niall wakes in the mine and steps outside where Andy sits quietly. They talk under the night sky. Niall opens up about her family, showing Andy pictures on her phone. Then, gently, she asks Andy about her own family. Andy's face hardens. She takes a breath and answers.
After a while, Andy admits that she doesn't really remember her true age because time has erased her earliest memories. She opens up about the deep guilt she carries, confessing that she once promised her lifelong friend, Quinn, that she would rescue her. But centuries have passed, and Quinn is still trapped somewhere beneath the sea. Andy swears she will never break that promise again, not to Joe, not to Nikki. This time, she will save them.
Just then, Booker shows up with important news. He's tracked down Copley's house. They quickly get ready, drive there, and prepare for the mission. Booker hands Andy a gun and goes ahead. But when Andy tries to give Niall a weapon, Niall refuses. She says she doesn't want to kill anyone. Andy tries to explain that being immortal comes with choices they can't escape, but Niall insists she doesn't want to become like them, killing, forgetting, and losing her humanity. Andy respects her wish, but gives her the unloaded gun just in case, telling her she can take the car and go home if she wants. Niall drives off toward the station, but when she checks the weapon, she realizes something shocking. The gun has no bullets. Suddenly, everything makes sense. Booker was the one who handed Andy that weapon. He intentionally gave Niall an empty gun. Could it mean he's the traitor? Meanwhile, Andy and Booker infiltrate Copley's house. Andy enters first, but strangely, Copley doesn't seem surprised to see her. Out of nowhere, Booker shoots Andy in the back, disabling her. She's stunned, betrayed, unable to believe it. Then the truth hits her. Booker set her up.
Copley steps forward, explaining his dream, to unlock immortality for all humanity. He admits he delivered Joe and Nikki to Merrick so that his research could continue. Andy, furious and heartbroken, turns on Booker and demands why he betrayed her after centuries of brotherhood. Booker breaks down, telling her he did it for their sake. He sees immortality not as a gift, but a curse. Merrick promised that if they discovered the secret, they might one day find a way to finally end their endless lives and rest in peace. Booker admits he longs for death, for release.
But then, he notices something terrifying.
Andy is bleeding, and this time her wound isn't healing. He realizes the impossible. She has lost her power. She's mortal now, exposed, vulnerable. He asks why she never told him, but Andy says it wouldn't have mattered. Before they can act, Merrick arrives with his guards. Copley warns him Andy is no longer immortal, but Merrick doesn't care. He orders both Andy and Booker to be taken to the lab. When Copley tries to intervene, Merrick's men knock him unconscious. Andy and Booker are dragged to Merrick's facility, restrained alongside Joe and Nikki. The experiments continue. Blood, samples, endless pain.
At the same time, Niall storms into Copley's house. Armed with the empty gun, she demands answers. To prove she's one of them, she shoots herself in the leg, only to heal instantly. Stunned, Copley admits the truth. Merrick has them, locked inside his lab. Then he shows Niall his wall of clippings, centuries of Andy's hidden deeds. Wars stopped, disasters prevented, lives saved. Niall finally sees Andy for who she really is. Someone who has always fought for humanity, even when she claimed to have lost hope.
Niall presses him further. Why did he betray them? Copley confesses he thought he was serving humanity, but now he sees Merrick's true greed. Regret burns in him. Wanting redemption, he agrees to help Niall. He sneaks her into Merrick's building. Niall, however, insists on going alone. She reminds him she's immortal, capable of surviving what's ahead, and it's safer if he stays out.
Inside the lab, Niall is gunned down by Merrick's guards. Believing she's dead, they lower their weapons until she suddenly resurrects and wipes them out in seconds. The cameras capture everything. They know she's immortal. Niles pushes forward, freeing Andy, Booker, Joe, and Nikki. Joe and Nikki want to leave Booker tied up for betraying them, but Andy says they'll deal with him later. Right now, they have to stop Merrick. The Immortals fight their way out, bullets flying everywhere. This time, they watch Andy more closely, because unlike them, she can die. During the chaos, Andy takes on a guard hand-to-hand, unleashing her fury. When she demands Merrick's location, he reveals the CEO is hiding in the upper suite. Upstairs, Merrick waits with his security, heavily armed and barricaded. But nothing stops the Immortals. They storm in, guns blazing, tearing through his defenses. Believing Merrick is escaping, Joe, Nikki, and Booker chase after him. Andy stays with Niall, who notices Andy's wounds are slowing her down. Niall, shaken, tells Andy she inspires her, reminding her why she wanted to fight for good in the first place. Andy, moved, admits Niall has reignited the faith she lost centuries ago. Suddenly, Merrick bursts in with a gun, aiming it straight at Andy. Enraged, he screams that they destroyed his work and stole his chance at greatness. Andy whispers something to Niall, the same Russian phrase she once used with the pilot. Niall understands the trick. Pretending to turn on Andy, she fires at her, distracting Merrick. In that split second, Andy strikes, wounding him. But Merrick, desperate, raises his gun for one last shot. Before he can fire, Niall grabs him and hurls them both out the window. They crash to the ground below. Niall dies instantly, but moments later, she gasps back to life. Merrick does not. The group regathers, escaping before the police arrive. Later, they confront Booker. Though alive, he is not forgiven. Andy tells him his punishment. 100 years of exile, a century of solitude. Only then may he return, if they choose to forgive him. Booker, devastated but accepting, knows this loneliness will be his burden. Andy embraces him one last time, whispering that she will miss him. For her, it may be goodbye forever, because her mortality means she won't live to see his return. The others leave him behind and regroup at Copley's. There, he offers to help them hide their tracks after every mission. Andy agrees, giving him the honor of protecting their secret. For the first time in centuries, the Immortals are united again, scarred but ready for whatever comes next. The second part begins with a ship in the middle of the ocean. We see them pulling a massive iron coffin out of the water, smashing it open with heavy hammers. Their leader stands nearby, watching closely, waiting. And then,
A face emerges from inside the coffin. It's Quinn, finally freed after being trapped beneath the sea for 500 years.
The scene shifts to an island in Croatia. Niall is steering a small boat, watching a house they're planning to break into. Andy is with the rest of the squad, giving orders. She tells Joe and Nikki to sneak in and follow the plan. They launch the attack, but during the fight, Joe's finger gets cut off. Shockingly, he picks it up, presses it back into place, and it heals instantly. Gunfire breaks out as they steal 2 cars, leading the guards into a chase to clear the way for Andy and Copley.
Andy and Copley move in, storming the house, but they come under fire from more guards inside. They take cover. Andy grabs a sword, swiftly cutting down 3 of them before retreating again. Copley reminds her that she's not immortal anymore, that one wrong move could mean her death. But Andy doesn't listen. She charges back with the sword, finishing off the rest of the armed men. At the same time, Niall crashes through with her boat, climbing up to the balcony. She knocks out a guard and joins Andy and Copley inside, backing them up. Together, they take out the remaining enemies, move upstairs, and finally find the arms dealer they came for. Without hesitation, they gun him down. Mission accomplished. They leave the house victorious. Later that night, they're sitting together, laughing, unwinding after the fight. Suddenly, Copley gets a call. He steps away to answer it. A little while later, Andy sits with Niall. Niall asks her what it feels like now, knowing she's no longer immortal and could actually die. Andy answers with calm honesty. She feels peace, even relief.
Copley returns with disturbing news. The arms dealer they killed wasn't the real buyer. The true arms dealer is someone else. A woman. He shows them her picture. Niall stares at it, shaken, because she's seen this woman before, in a dream. Niall explains, in her dream she saw an ancient-looking library, something straight out of the Middle Ages. A woman stepped out of the shadows, stabbed the library's owner with a dagger, then stole books and manuscripts. Niall doesn't understand what it means, but Andy reassures her. They'll figure it out. Meanwhile, in France, we see Booker, all alone after the Immortals exiled him for betraying them. His life has fallen apart. He drinks heavily. Walking into his home, he grips a gun, sensing someone inside. He's right. Quinn is waiting for him. She introduces herself, telling him she's been waiting for this moment for centuries. She wants to reach Andy. Moments later, they abduct Booker, shoving him into a car. Back with the squad, they arrive in France by ship. They agree to split up for now and regroup later, but Andy asks Copley to come with her on a personal errand. Meanwhile, Quinn interrogates Booker. She wants to know where Andy is. Booker tells her the truth. They kicked him out. He doesn't know where they are. But Quinn presses him. Did Andy ever mention her? Did she ever speak her name? Booker admits that Andy never stopped searching for her, and that it tore her apart knowing she couldn't save her. But Quinn doesn't believe him. She says she thought Andy had been trapped, just like her, but after she got out, she realized Andy had been free this whole time, and never rescued her. To Quinn, that was betrayal.
Back in France, Joe walks the streets and heads toward Booker's house. But he's not alone. Nikki and Niall are already there, predicting he'd do exactly that. Niall checks upstairs. She comes back shaken. Booker isn't there, but there are bloodstains. Something happened.
Meanwhile, Andy and Copley arrive at the home of an old acquaintance. Andy tells Copley to wait until she gets permission. The door opens. It's Tom, another immortal. Andy introduces herself and soon introduces Copley. They talk, and Tom reveals he has lived for over 2,000 years. He takes them into his hidden library. Niall's dream suddenly makes sense. This is the very same library she saw. Tom explains he has collected every manuscript and legend about the Immortals, but part of the collection was stolen. Niall's dream was real. The thief's name? Ricorda. She was the first immortal Tom ever met. Andy is shocked. She always thought she was the first.
Tom tells them the story. Long ago, they lived in peace, before fear and division tore them apart. He remembers watching as Quinn was sealed in the iron coffin. He wanted to intervene, but Ricorda refused. She hated the existence of other immortals, seeing them as a curse. She abandoned him.
Andy realizes this was the same day Tom saved her. because she too was about to be locked inside a coffin, just like Quinn. Tom explains that afterward, he dedicated his life to knowledge, isolating himself. But Rescorda also withdrew. Only she used knowledge to gain power and control. He warns that she probably knows everything about them already, and now they are her targets. Andy grows worried. She asks if Rescorda knows she's no longer immortal. Tom is stunned. He never knew Andy lost her gift. Andy asks him to join their squad, and he agrees. When they bring him to the others, everyone is surprised Andy knew about another immortal all this time. Then they break the bad news. Booker is missing. Not long after, Joe gets a call from Booker himself. He begs them to meet. Joe and Nikki go, finding Booker desperate. He insists they must take him to Andy. They bring him back, where he delivers the shock. Quinn is free. Andy is speechless, struggling to believe it. Booker hands her a letter Quinn gave him. Andy opens it. The words are written in an ancient tongue. In it, Quinn said she has returned from the sea, only to discover Andy lived freely while she endured centuries of torment in the coffin. For 500 years, she waited for Andy to keep her promise, to come save her, but Andy never came. To Quinn, that was betrayal. After reading the letter, Andy makes a decision. She has to go. Niall chases after her, refusing to let her go alone. She joins Andy in the car. The next day, they arrive in Rome. Andy walks alone, while Niall follows from a distance, ready to step in if anything goes wrong. Finally, Andy sees her, Quinn. After 500 years, the two women stand face to face again. Andy is overwhelmed, at a loss for words. She feels crushing guilt. She was supposed to save her, but she didn't. Quinn's eyes burn with pain and fury. She tells Andy she'll never understand the torment of 5 centuries locked in an iron coffin. Andy tries to apologize, telling her she never stopped searching. But Quinn doesn't care. The only thing she feels now is betrayal. After that, they sit together, but Quinn still can't forgive Andy. She asks her, "How could you live all these years knowing I was trapped?" Andy replies that she built a team of immortals, fighting through history to protect humanity and bring good into the world. She invites Quinn to join them. But Quinn, broken by 5 centuries of torture inside that iron coffin, tells her that all she feels now is anger and a burning desire for revenge against humanity itself. Quinn stands up and walks away. Andy quickly follows, trying to stop her, only to be shocked when Quinn challenges her to fight. Andy doesn't want to, but Quinn keeps attacking, forcing Andy to defend herself. The battle is dangerous because Andy is no longer immortal. If she dies this time, she's gone forever. They clash fiercely until Niall rushes in, trying to break the fight apart. At that moment, they suddenly see Rescorda standing behind them. Rescorda slips away, and Niall runs after her. Andy realizes the truth. Rescorda was the one who freed Quinn from the coffin, and now they are allied. Quinn escapes. Andy chases, but loses her trail. Meanwhile, Niall follows Rescorda into an old church. Inside, Rescorda confronts her, asking, "Why do you follow a monster like Andy?" Niall defends her team, saying they fight to help people, but Rescorda insists Niall knows nothing about Andy's true past, that one day she will learn the truth. Then she makes Niall an offer. "You and I are the first and the last. Together we can end the Immortals once and for all, and save the world from their curse." To prove her words, Rescorda shows Niall a mark on her left arm, an identical symbol that Niall also bears. She promises, "You'll understand soon. We'll meet again." Then she vanishes, leaving Niall shaken and confused. Back with Andy, she lies wounded from her fight with Quinn. At the same time, Booker visits Thom. Thom shares his fears about Niall, asking if she ever fought Andy before. Booker recalls their very first meeting when Niall wounded Andy in battle. That's when Thom explains the ancient prophecy. The last immortal has the power to strip another of their immortality if they wound them in combat. Booker suddenly realizes it was Niall's blow that caused Andy to lose her immortality. Tom adds, If someone loses their gift, they can choose another to inherit it. Booker becomes obsessed with the idea. To him, immortality is a curse, and death is the release he's always wanted. Later, Booker visits Andy. He tells her she's lucky to finally live like everyone else, fragile but free. He doesn't reveal the prophecy, but keeps it inside.
Meanwhile, Rescorda meets with Quinn again, reminding her, "I freed you from the coffin. I gave you back your life." Quinn swears she won't stop until Andy suffers. Not just her, but her whole team, condemned like she was for 500 years. Rescorda offers her a deal. "Join me, and I'll make it happen." Quinn accepts.
The story shifts to Indonesia, inside a fortified nuclear facility. A car crashes through the gates. Quinn steps out, shot dead by guards. But moments later, she rises again, terrifying them. She grabs their commander and orders the guards to drop their weapons or die. With Resguard's forces, they seize control of the facility.
Back with Niall, she's training with swords when Booker challenges her to a sparring match. Tom joins them, turning it into a three-way duel. During the fight, Niall accidentally wounds Booker, but this time his injury doesn't heal. Tom realizes Booker has lost his immortality. His time is almost up. Tom urges him to secretly transfer the gift to Andy when the chance comes.
Soon after, Copley gathers the team, showing them surveillance footage. Rescorda and Quinn have taken the nuclear plant and planted a bomb inside the reactor. If it explodes, millions will die from radiation. Niall warns it's a trap, but Andy says they have no choice. They must go.
Inside the facility, the Immortals fight Rescorda's men, hand to hand, knowing gunfire could trigger the reactor. One by one, they take down the guards with brutal skill. Joe, Nikki, and Tom push toward the control room, while Andy is hit with electric shocks but manages to fight through.
Suddenly, the control room locks, flooding with gas. The Immortals are captured, sealed in reinforced bags designed to hold them even after revival. Andy tries to reach them over comms. No response. Guards surround her, but Booker saves her.
In that moment, Booker transfers his immortality to Andy. She doesn't realize it until he shows her his wound, still bleeding. Andy is shocked as Booker smiles, finally free. He tells her it's his chance to die and walks into battle, locking Andy behind him. She watches helplessly as Booker is cut down, dying at last.
Meanwhile, Niall confronts Quinn, who offers her an alliance with Rescorda. Niall refuses, loyal to her team. Quinn attacks with her sword, but as Niall strikes back, Quinn realizes her wounds aren't healing. She has lost her immortality too. Suddenly, Rescorda arrives and drives a spear into Niall, capturing her alive along with the others.
Andy discovers Quinn inside the reactor chamber, holding the detonator, but Quinn hesitates. Killing millions won't bring her justice. Finally, she drops the trigger. Before Andy can breathe, helicopters appear. Rescorda's men are airlifting the captured Immortals. Andy leaps onto a chopper, fighting Rescorda mid-air. They crash, weapons drawn, battling fiercely. To Andy's surprise, Rescorda's wounds don't heal either. She too has lost her gift. Rescorda screams that only Niall, the last Immortal, can restore her power. She has taken Andy's team hostage to force Niall into the ritual. The fight ends with Andy wounded and Rescorda escaping by helicopter. Andy is left alone, but not defeated.
She returns to Tom's library, studying the prophecy, determined to learn everything about it. Quinn, no longer immortal herself, joins Andy once more. Despite their pain, they prepare to face Rescorda together, like they once did in the Middle Ages, side by side in battle. And that's where Part 2 ends.